All right, let's dive right into today's explainer. We are exploring a truly fascinating folktale today. It revolves around a young orphan named Kisu, a supernatural multiplier and honestly the ultimate test of human nature. Now, you might think this is just a simple children's story, but it's actually a super deep psychological look at what happens when infinite resources collide with, well, unchecked human desire.
So, I want you to start by asking yourself a question. What if a single coin became 100? Just imagine a scenario where literally anything you toss into a vessel instantly multiplies, endlessly. $1 becomes 100. One piece of jewelry suddenly turns into a massive mountain of gold. I mean, it sounds like the absolute ultimate fantasy, right? But as we'll see as we analyze the source text today, this exact dream actually morphs into a terrifying psychological trap faster than you'd think.
To really understand the stakes here, we have to establish our protagonist's environment. According to the text, our guy Kisu is an orphan, living in extreme poverty right at the edge of Rampur village. He herds cattle just to scrape by and earn some dry bread. His situation is frankly dire. And to make matters worse, the tyrannical village chief, a guy known as the Mukhya, loses his prized cow Lali. Instead of, actually helping, the Mukhya forces a starving Kisu out into this terrifying, stormy jungle in the dead of night. He even threatens to completely destroy Kisu's small hut if he fails. It's strictly out of this pure, raw desperation, while seeking shelter in a forbidden part of the woods, that Kisu stumbles into a cave glowing with this strange, eerie blue light. Which brings us to the artifact itself. Inside this cave, Kisu discovers the Icha Porti Matka. It's described as a mythical, wish-fulfilling ancient brass pot. But here's the catch. It doesn't just grant wishes out of thin air. It's a literal multiplier. Anything placed inside it is multiplied by exactly 100. When Kesu touches it, this divine voice echoes through the cave, explaining that his honesty and his sorrow are what actually awakened it. But the voice also delivers a very strict, ominous warning. Greed is humanity's biggest enemy. And this brilliantly illustrates the immediate magic of the pot. So Kesu safely finds the missing cow and brings the pot home. To test it out, he obviously doesn't use gold. He literally has none. Instead, he drops in his very last piece of dry bread. Almost instantly, the pot glows and outpours 100 fresh, warm rotis. It's a total miracle. But notice Kesu's reaction here. He doesn't hoard the food to sell it to the highest bidder. Nope. He eats his fill and immediately distributes the rest to the hungry children in his village, proudly declaring that no child will ever sleep on an empty stomach again. Now, what is really fascinating here is the stark psychological contrast between our two main characters. On one side, we clearly see Kesu's abundance mindset. He receives infinite food and uses it specifically to alleviate suffering. But on the flip side, we have the Mukhya's toxic scarcity mindset. You see, the Mukhya's servant Ramu secretly witnesses Kesu's little miracle and reports right back to his boss. Immediately, that scarcity mindset takes over the chief. Even though he is already the richest man in the village, he views Kesu's pot as a massive threat, and more importantly, an opportunity for absolute power. He doesn't want to feed the village, he just wants to hoard all the wealth. So what happens next? The very next morning, the greedy Mukhya arrives at Kesu's hut with an entire army. He uses this completely fabricated, totally tyrannical logic to steal the pot. Get this. He claims that because Kesu lives on village land and breathes village air, any treasure found in the nearby jungle automatically belongs to the chief. It's ridiculous. Kesu desperately pleads with him, warning him over and over about the divine voice's curse regarding greed. But the Mukhya? He ignores him entirely and just confiscates the magical pot for himself. Back at his lavish palace, the Mukhya begins his little experiment, which leads to a frantic, explosive escalation of wealth. He starts small, dropping in his last single gold coin. Boom! 100 gold coins pour out. Instantly, avarice just completely blinds him. He goes frantic, dumping in literally everything of value he owns. He throws in his jewelry, then his fine silk clothes. The text vividly describes this blinding rush where the entire room quickly overflows with a massive mountain of multiplied treasure. But in his chaotic frenzy to throw more and more into the pot, the Mukhya makes a huge, fatal error. He literally slips on his own mountain of gold and falls right into the magical pot himself. His servant desperately tries to pull him out, but it's too late. The artifact just does exactly what it is programmed to do. It multiplies whatever is inside it by exactly 100. So we see this exact same multiplier again, the number 100, but this time, oh boy, it represents pure chaos. 100 identical Lokias pop out of the pot. And think about it, because the original Mukia was an incredibly greedy, selfish guy, you now have 100 greedy, selfish men crammed into the exact same room. Every single one of them claims to be the real chief. They all claim the gold is theirs and theirs alone. Naturally, they immediately begin pulling each other's hair, throwing punches, and just completely destroying the palace as they fight over the treasure. As the palace fully descends into violent anarchy, Kesu realizes a terrifying truth. These 100 greedy chiefs will soon spill out into the village and destroy absolutely everyone. So he runs all the way back to the dangerous jungle, finds that glowing cave again, and practically begs the divine voice to stop the magic. The voice tells him, well, it can be stopped, but it requires a massive test of character. Which brings us to this profound dilemma. Would you willingly accept poverty to save others? The voice warns Kesu that destroying the magic will erase everything, including that endless food supply he secured for himself and the poor. He will be right back at square one. Without a single moment of hesitation, Kesu makes his ultimate choice. He accepts the burden of poverty, stating beautifully that he doesn't want happiness at the cost of others' suffering. In response, the divine voice grants him a magical glowing stick. Kesu sprints back to the palace, completely ignores the shouts of the 100 fighting chiefs, and with one massive swing, smashes the brass pot to pieces. Instantly, there is a blinding flash of light. All the multiplied gold, the jewelry, the silks, and the 99 fake fighting chiefs, they all just vanish into thin smoke. When the dust settles, only the real Mukia remains, sitting right there in the ruins of his palace. And you know what? The complete destruction of his fake treasure actually restored his humanity. His arrogance is entirely shattered. Realizing that his own unhinged greed nearly killed him and destroyed his entire village, and that the poorest boy in the village sacrificed everything to save him, the Mukia literally falls to his knees. He apologizes to Kesu and makes a solemn, permanent vow to never exploit the poor again. So Kesu returns to his simple life, gathering dry wood, feeling incredibly light and at peace, despite having no food. But hey, the story doesn't actually end there. The divine voice returns to Kesu, revealing that smashing the pot was actually the final test. This totally reveals the real message of the source text. We essentially see two distinct types of magic here. On one hand, you have the brass pot, representing instant wealth that inevitably breeds chaos, versus a true blessing, where honest, hard work naturally yields a 100-fold return. If Kesu plants a single seed, it will yield the greatest crop. If he cares for an animal, it will absolutely thrive. This type of magic, the text suggests, brings lasting peace and genuine prosperity. Ultimately, Kesu becomes the most respected and successful farmer in the entire region, eventually even opening a massive dining hall where absolutely no one ever goes hungry. And the Mukia? He actually becomes Kesu's closest friend and helper. Which leads us perfectly to the core moral principle of our explainer today, captured so beautifully in this quote from the text. Greed is a pot that never fills. Contentment is a treasure that never empties. The source material heavily emphasizes that true magic doesn't actually lie in hoarding material objects. It lies strictly in our selfless intentions and our honest, daily efforts. It really is a brilliant narrative that forces us to look inward. Think about it. The pot simply multiplied whatever was put into it. When Kesu put in a pure desire to feed others, it created an entire community. When the Mukia put in his own selfish greed, it created literal self-destruction. So I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to chew on. Look at your own actions, your own resources, and your own intentions. What are you choosing to multiply in your own life today? Are you feeding a cycle of endless, chaotic greed, or are you actively planting seeds of genuine, lasting abundance?